Hey, hey, hey.
Live.
Hey,
guys.
Eli Harris in the
Happy to be
house
here.
with Blaine Bartlett, my mentor. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. That is the Mindset Mastermind. It's so nice to have you, Eli. We are rocking and rolling. You're the co-founder of R0, and your area of business has taken off, of course, during COVID.
Yep.
And so, when you were, designing your specific business, did you have any insight on that we may someday face this type of challenge and how important what you do would come to the forefront of business?
Yeah, so we were actually founded in the wake of COVID because of COVID. They started out as COVID response. It quickly evolved into something much greater than we all ever expected. In the past 14 months, we've actually raised about $60 million from the same backers as Tesla and SpaceX. And we've, in 5 months, brought a product to market, and we've moved about $20 million in the last 7 months. So we're going quickly.
Wow.
Why didn't you call me?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is in the wake of COVID, we saw that the global response was to pick up a bunch of chemicals and go hose buildings down with chemicals. The whole disinfection industry, it's gargantuan. It's hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap. It's governed by Ecolab, Clorox, Diversey, SC Johnson, and they all push commodity chemicals. And it's one of the last large industries that hasn't been advanced by modern technologies. So we saw a huge opportunity here, really just to create a disinfection 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
You did it with a subscription model.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
And you're doing it in a very innovative way. I mean, I'm not to asperge a brand, but Clorox, I mean, that's harsh. Bleach is that's a harsh chemical. And it's got some consequences, not just in terms of human skin. I mean, but when you start looking at its impact on plastics and other stuff, there's some residual effects there that aren't too particularly healthy. How are you doing things differently, and what are you doing from a innovation perspective that actually sets you apart from this?
Yeah. So what we did is we started studying hospitals, thinking that hospitals are the one place where you actually encourage the ill to gather, and you have to learn to control the spread of disease. So if we can all go to the hospital and come out without an illness, hospitals are generally doing a pretty good job, and that's where the gold standard is. We got in touch with Dr. Richard Wade. Dr. Wade ran Cal OSHA for 15 years. We convinced him to join us as our chief scientist, and he led us on this study and understood that UVC light is actually the gold standard in operating rooms. We use large UVC light towers to turn over operating rooms in between surgeries, and it treats the air and surfaces. But what's really interesting is UVC is very old technology. We've been using it since 1903. The Nobel Prize for Medicine was awarded. We've been using it in wastewater treatment since the 10s, HVAC since the 20s, in hospitals since the 40s. But what's really unfortunate is that the pricing is an artifact of our healthcare system, and it has nothing to do with the bill of materials. Hospital-acquired infections are very costly for a hospital. So if somebody goes to a hospital, walks in for a small surgery, and leaves with staph or C. diff, that's a very expensive incident for the hospital. And because UVC is such old technology, there's an overwhelming body of evidence that shows the introduction of this technology results in a 93% reduction in incidences of infection. So these manufacturers come in and they sell a cost savings on preventing infections, and it has nothing to do with the bill of materials of producing that product. So we all have engineering backgrounds, and we looked at this and said, fundamentally, this is not rocket science. This is a light on wheels with a timer. And we went out and we raised a lot of money. And in 5 months, we brought a product to market that unequivocally, fundamentally outcompetes any product being sold in the world today. But where we actually brought our engineering prowess is in the software, and all of our IP is in a software web. So we're the first company to embed an LTE chip. And what we can do with that is we can actually audit who used the system, what room, and what time. So for the first time ever, you actually have an audit trail around disinfection. Because right now you send crews in to spray to wipe, and maybe they sign a log, or if you're really fancy, you might scan a QR code, but there's no way of actually knowing what was done. So we're able to provide these real-time audit trails that actually validate what was done.
Wow.
Boy,
Sorry, Blaine. I was like, besides reiterating the question, why didn't you call Blaine and I? If anyone's out there and has these incredible ideas, it's learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM, and it's David at dmeltzer.com. This is extraordinary because, as I'm looking at the book behind you, Blaine, Compassionate Capitalism, and people talk about making money, helping people, and having fun. Here we're facing one of the biggest challenges on the history of the earth, as Deepak Chopra told me on this show, right? This is the first time that the entire world is questioning human existence at the same time, and which is extraordinary. And moreover, here we have a low-cost end-to-end solution that saves lives in hospitals, helps us open up, and senior care facilities, by the way, open up restaurants, schools, sports arenas, jails, all of these really important places. And when I talked about a subscription model, the subscription starts at $17.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
Like I said, why didn't you call Blaine or I? This is horrible.
What's really interesting is I wish people would make this decision because it's just the right thing to do to keep people safer and healthier and have a respect for human health. And I think that there is some of that consciousness growing, and there is a new sense of responsibility. But what we've been uncovering as we go from industry to industry is that there actually is a real financial ROI and value for any organization in creating healthier facilities. For example, schools are funded based on daily attendance and student performance. And if we're offering a tool that is better at combating pathogens, not just COVID, but seasonal flu, common cold, norovirus, it actually results in increased student attendance, which means more funding for the school. And attendance is directly correlated to performance. For the gym,
and safe place to learn. How about a safe place to learn? We will not know the effects of 16 months of depreciated learning and in under attendance of attention. I mean, it's ridiculous. What about airplanes, Eli? This obviously could be applied to airplanes.
Yeah, I mean, in any industry, for sports teams, it's staph infections. Fun fact, I just learned
the locker room. Yeah.
Staph infections kill more people than HIV, Parkinson's, emphysema, and homicide combined every year. I had no idea. And it's a really costly problem for gyms and for jails. A lot of jails we're working with. So I think there's an opportunity really to get smarter about when, where, and how we disinfect in any industry. And I think folks are going to start realizing that healthy buildings are going to fundamentally result to better financial health for these companies too.
Well, and what I'm really intrigued with, I mean, like you say, the technology is old school. It's been around since early 1900s. But the metric that you've introduced, the ability to track what's going on. I do a lot of work in hospital systems with executive groups, and every single one of them are talking about patient quality of care, quality. How does quality get measured? And we disinfect. Well, how do you know you're disinfecting? Well, like you said, somebody scanned the QR code, but what did they do with it? Now we can know what they did with it, and it is so bloody inexpensive to be able to track that. That is just, if I'm a hospital CEO, I'm just going to go sign me up.
The compliance piece, there's a few, so it closes the loop. You know that the job was done, but that also covers liability for an organization to say, hey, I set a protocol, and here's proof that I followed my protocol. So nobody can claim negligence, and it protects against lawsuits. But where we're going to go to really close the loop is we're now innovating in sensor technology. So we're going to start outfitting buildings with sensors that look at utilization of a building. So if nobody used that conference room, don't send your crew to clean it. If 10 people use that bathroom, it doesn't matter if it's been 2 hours or 2 days, send somebody in there. So there's an opportunity to get smarter based on risk. Right now, cleaning disinfection is done based on time, which can be correlated to risk, but not necessarily. But we could get smarter about generating automated work orders for your crews, so you're using labor more efficiently, and you're also mitigating risk better. So you have the sensors telling you where to go, then you have the connectivity to report that the job was done. So it's closed loop ecosystem.
Yeah.
And Eli, I need to point this out because obviously Blaine and I mentor a lot of people, coach, help in the fundraising aspect of a business. And people ask me all the time, what's the difference between a company that can't raise money and one that can raise $58 million overnight and be profitable short thereafter? And, it's the process of thinking that you went through. There was an existing technology. Then there was new technology that complemented existing. There's a huge problem. And when the huge problem arose, you figured out how can I articulate the quantitative value of this combination, and you asked for help, right? You got this chief scientist, you got all these other people.
Yep.
And what I really love about it is that if somebody would have told me, early on in the 90s, as I kind of entered technology, I always make the joke, into the internet where my mom said it was a fad. I look here at, 3 different generations of entrepreneurs. And without a doubt, we all look exactly like the entrepreneurs of our generation, right? You have Napoleon Hill over here with his books behind him. You have kind of the in-between model here, the in-between model of the Jobs type of look, the black t-shirt. And then you got Eli. And, I love the fact that, all 3 of us are built in the same elk. We all have a desire that we must be what we can be. We've credible emotional attachment, but we're capable of articulating a quantifiable value, not just to make money, but save lives, help people, and have fun. And so I just want to point out to all the entrepreneurs for the next generation coming, I don't know what you're going to look like, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yep.
As long as you're having an impact. Yeah.
Did you have any of that resistance that Blaine and I had, when you were out there with this crazy idea that, look, I'm going to raise all this money and make millions and millions within the context of, what was one of the most challenging economic, atmospheres in the world to raise money. You probably did it virtually. Did you have people laugh at you, scoff at you, and make fun of you, or were you able just instantly to articulate this value and it was like, yeah, do it?
I guess I was a couple of things. So one piece of advice my dad gave me when I was young, and I don't always listen to him, but he told me if you're doing a job you're qualified for, you're doing the wrong job, and that there is no secret credential that you need. Yeah, I love that too. I think early on, I was 24 when I started my first venture-backed business. It didn't go how I fantasized, but I put myself out there, and I think I realized then that there was no secret credential that you need to start. Most people don't know what they're doing, and the good ones are the ones who are humble enough to admit that and ask for help. And I think I pretty quickly realized that I think a lot of my peers wait in paralysis, thinking that once I achieve X, Y, or Z, then I can take that leap. But you will never be ready. There is never a ready time. You just got to do it. And I think that I was fortunate enough when things didn't go the way I wanted to go. I went home and went on mom's couch and got a foot massage. So our rock bottom isn't that deep.
Well, you're awesome, man. You gotta come back and visit us. We got so many other content created shows. You are the icon for me for the COVID entrepreneur. R0 is incredible. You're an incredible entrepreneur. You should be applauded for everything that you're doing and will do. Remember, the next idea, David at dmeltzer.com, and I'll pass on the message to Blaine as well. You got my money already. I'll stroke you a check.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Hey, and before you go, Eli, I'm going to circle back with you. I want to get you on the Soul of Business podcast. You got a story here that I'd really love to share.
Awesome. I would love that. I would love that. Thank you.
You're awesome, Eli. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you for everything you're doing. R0.com. Check him out. Eli Harris, incredible entrepreneur. That's what I'm talking about. That's what Office Hours is about, bringing people on. That's incredible. I love it. And look, we're not slowing down because we have Allana next. And there
she is.
Great author and intimacy expert. Obviously, you released your new book, From Heartbreaks to Heartmates. And that's the story of my marriage. I met my wife in the 4th grade. She broke my heart, and I asked her at 6th grade camp to go steady through a friend, and she said no. But she's my heartmate, 23 years of being my heartmate now.
Oh, that's phenomenal. So good to be with both of you. Thank you. I was listening to Eli. I'm ready to give him a foot rub. I'm a mama. So anything to
That's great.
keep him going. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well, Lana, tell us about the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I've been an intimacy expert for 20 years because I was a hot mess and I needed help. Unlike your 23 years, I had 2 divorces. And so when I became an intimacy expert and COVID hit, and people said, you know what? I'm already so lonely. Now with COVID, I don't know how. I'm so devastated. How can I find somebody? So people fall in love in my program. When you become the one, you find the one and you keep the one. But when you're empty and desperate, you grasp onto somebody and you push them away, right? So
Yep.
dating apps are designed to keep you single. They make money when you fail in relationship. They give you 10 more wounded people to crush your heart again. And people are literally committing suicide. This is a mental health crisis. And I had a moment where I said, okay, enough. I'm going to create the world's first partnering app. And in my partnering app, there is a dating app, but everybody doing the dating app is also doing intimacy training. And everybody doing intimacy training is connecting every Friday live to practice being real, practice being vulnerable, practice opening their heart, practicing showing up. And so this is what I provided for my clients. And I believe it's going to shift the tide, because really what we need is to come from the inside out, not the outside in. And I love that I can share my own vulnerable story and help people find lasting love.
You know, one of my mentors a long time ago said that we connect best through vulnerability. And that has been, I've run with that for about 35 years. I mean, it really makes sense. And yeah, I teach a program for the American Association of Physician Leaders, and it's called Leadership Authenticity. And there's always a question about, what do you mean by authenticity? And I wrestled with that for about a year and a half, trying to, kind of parse that down. Looked at Kierkegaard, just all kinds of, what do you mean by authenticity? I finally came up with, it's what's left when I stop trying to impress you.
Fist pump.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hearing you talk about here. It's kind of like, do me first. And then if I'm doing me well, I'm going to have somebody come in that is really kind of connecting, because
absolutely,
I love that. Heartbreak.
I had a PhD in people pleaser. Like, I wanted you to like me so much because my worth was based on your approval. My safety was based on you liking me. I didn't have a relationship with myself. And when I looked inside, I mean, I'm a cum laude graduate of Columbia University. I've written 6 books. I've interviewed Whoopi Goldberg on I have all these things that I should be very confident, but there was still a sliver inside where I was so insecure and I didn't want anyone to know about it. And that led to 2 divorces where I was just trying to look good and get approval, and it didn't work. So I think it's really important that we make vulnerability the new sexy. Vulnerability is where we can connect and be real, put down our walls, open our hearts, and come from, I mean, I don't know if you've had anybody from Heart Math on your program, but there's a science to coherence when we feel home with God, the divine, home on Mother Gaia, the planet, home in our hearts, where we're not ashamed of our failures, where we're not ashamed of our sexual desires, where it's all sacred and all beautiful. So I want to give people permission to be authentic with other people, willing to be authentic. And I don't know about your 23 years, David, or Blaine, your relationship status, but don't you think real relationships require real work? And that couples that grow together, stay together. Like, what has your experience been during those wobbles?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's absolutely true. In my life, I'd call my wife my savior, because if you were a PhD, I went to the Oxford University of pleasing and being a chameleon. I reflect back on conversations that I said, and what I love about my wife is she's a truth stick. Like, literally, I'd come home and she'd look at me and like, are you kidding? Because she sat in conversations where I'd say, oh my gosh, I love the Republican Party. And then 5 minutes later, I'm a strong Democrat and I am you. And it took her to literally threaten to leave me and said, you better take stock in who you are and what you want to become, or I'm out of here. And what I found really interesting about getting vulnerable not just in my relationships, but with myself.
Yes.
I blacked out a whole bunch of issues in my life because obviously I was protecting myself. I was protecting also my mother. You know, I was afraid to tell that my childhood, certain things happened because my mom had 6 kids, single mom, wasn't paying attention, and bad things happened to me. And I didn't want her to look bad. Right.
Yeah.
And then God forbid I tell someone that, you know, my mom wasn't perfect. After all she sacrificed for me. And then even worse now, which is so interesting because I pride myself on trying to be truthful. I know that everyone's not truthful, including me, and I have good intentions, but quickly trying to tell the truth. What's interesting as a man is that I think there's a huge advantage today of being vulnerable because I'm very vulnerable publicly. And people will say, you are amazing. You're so courageous. You're so strong. I love your vulnerability. But if a woman today is publicly vulnerable, she's weak, right? And it's very difficult now because I'm very honest about it, that vulnerability does not go both ways at all times. And that we have to learn to also accept vulnerability from men and women and understand it is courage and it is allowing the universe to come through us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. Well, it's too hard to remember who I lied to and who I told the truth to. So I just tell the truth. It's just easier. But this idea of being vulnerable and sharing my own, like I used to be a topless dancer in Japan when I was 20, and I didn't want anyone to know that. And in fact, when I had a 12-year custody battle, they used it against me, saying I wasn't a fit mother. So I've been really hurt and humiliated by my willingness to be vulnerable. But I would much rather be a stand for truth, authenticity, vulnerability, transparency than fakey fake and people pleaser and all the rest of it, to give others permission to be themselves. Because here's what I've discovered. I used to be empty, you know, half full, you complete me, you know, Jerry Maguire. And it led to neediness, control, and it pushed away 2 husbands. And so now what I realize is when we have 2 whole people who love themselves, the wobbly and the magnificent, here it is. Here's the whole, you know, enchilada. 2 wholes don't equal 1 and 1 is 2. 1 and 1 is infinity. And humanity needs that. Entrepreneurs need that. The world needs where we can ignite each other's evolutionary spark for all. So we don't face each other in neediness. You complete me. We stand beside each other towards the horizon to be there. And when you can be that way, you can receive rejection and you go, you just, it doesn't need to stick. You can receive love. You can receive money. You can receive miracles. You can receive it all because your worth isn't based on the outside in, it's on the inside out. And I think that's inspiring. It's inspiring for humanity.
I'm struck by the title, Heartbreak, leading to Heartmate. And just as I've been listening here, heartbreak is a consequence of illusion being punctured. I think. And the romantic notion of you complete me. I mean, it's a romantic notion, but 1/2 times 1/2 equals 1/4.
Thank you.
1 times 1 equals a whole. So I am complete in and of myself. I mean, if people as a mindset, there's nothing lacking. God doesn't make mistakes in construction. There's a hole here that may not be fully expressed right now, but it's in here. So to your point about inside out, and if I've got to go through the puncturing of the illusion in order to find the heartmate, is what I'm really kind of taking out of this. This is really cool.
This is so good, Blaine. When we see from an open heart, it's a different point of view. We can see the divorce as a gift. The only way I can learn to forgive is if I was betrayed. The only way I can learn to speak up is if I held back my truth, right? So those relationships were gifts to support us in evolving, so we can say, thank you. Maybe we say thank you, mofo, until we get rid of that. But anyways, we eventually say thank you. And I am now better because of you. I can stand taller because of you. And I wish you well. So in this curriculum with Heartmates, which is the partnering app, we learn to forgive the past, transmute our anger, find little you inside our heart and give this one the approval that we've been seeking. Become in this wonderful relationship with God and the goddess, and allow our sensuality to be sacred, not something to be ashamed of. We become whole and unapologetic, which means we're living our purpose, giving our genius to humanity, receiving our abundance, giving from the overflow. We're just like healthy people who inspire others. And it's not for the faint of heart. It isn't. Yep. But to me, there's no other way of living. I'm not going to do fakey fake victim anymore. I was a damsel in distress for long enough. Yeah.
Well,
oh, go ahead, Blaine.
Well, I was just a little factoid here. Physiologically, when the fetus develops, the heart is the first organ to develop. The tongue is the second organ that gets developed, and it comes out of the same cellular structure as the heart. So speaking from the heart is more than a metaphor. I mean, it truly is more than a metaphor.
Yes.
And yeah, this is juicy. This is good stuff.
Well, it's really funny you say that, because sometimes I tell my clients when they're in their head, I go, speak from the valves of the heart. And if I get really naughty, I say to the ladies, speak with your lips. Or guys, when you speak to somebody with your balls, it's grounded. You're in your potency. And then if you come up through your open heart, and then you communicate and you make it land, you don't talk at them, you really talk with them and let it land. It's a beautiful, meaningful, intimate conversation that leaves an impact. Yeah.
No, I think, I think my mom was wrong though. She told me the fetus was fully developed after graduate school. So she had that a little bit wrong. Probably Allana had the same kind of parents, I think, going to Columbia with her degrees and her books. Last thing real quick though, your podcast of intimate conversations.
Yeah.
And, you're talking about expressing yourself from being grounded of who you are. I think a lot of times in intimate conversations, we're afraid to express ourselves. One, because the truth may hurt you or someone else.
Yeah.
Or two, you're just afraid to be angry because you don't realize that you can really love someone and still be angry at them.
Yeah.
And in intimate relationships, not just with a heart mate, but parents and siblings who we care so much about, where sometimes we're just afraid to express the way we feel and talk through that.
Yeah.
Your podcast so brilliantly allows people to have and talk their heart.
Yes.
And allow for forgiveness to interplay with all spoken word and all spoken feelings. What are some of the top 3 tools that you teach for intimate conversation?
Such a great question. First is, when we're having this conversation and anger arises, if your heart is closed, you will be projecting onto them or criticizing yourself. But if that very same potency of anger is through an open heart, it's fierce love. I love you so effing much that I need to blah, 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 right? Or I love myself so bloody much that I'm unwilling to go against my values and integrity. So the key with anger is to keep the heart open and allow that energy to arise into potent action aligned with your truth. So that would be the anger, fierce love conversation. The second thing, when you're having an intimate conversation and you want to use a sandwich, you don't want to go right for the jugular because they'll get defensive. You first want to start with the piece of bread. Thank you. I'm so grateful that we can have these honest conversations. Middle of the sandwich. Can I speak from my heart? Permission. I feel, not you, I feel. And you speak your truth in the center of the sandwich. And then at the end, you ask, and what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? This is a dialogue together. And by putting these in a sandwich, you allow the other to put their walls down, open their heart, and stay connected. And lastly, I would say, just like I said before, in these intimate conversations, if you let go of attachment to the result, let go of importance that they like you or don't like you, and you come back and you don't speak from here, you speak from the valves in the heart, or even a little lower, in the sacredness of your sexuality and in the root of your body. Like your root is connected to the earth. I belong, I matter, I'm enough. You're coming from wholeness through an open heart, and you speak from there rather than trying to strategize to be right, look good, do it right, be in control. Let go of that. Drop into the heart and speak from there. Things are going to go a hell of a lot better. And over time, the intimacy is going to deepen into really rich, rich connection.
Beautiful.
Wow, beautiful. You're amazing, just like our other guests. You fit right in today on Office Hours as always. People can find AllanaPratt.com. thank you so much. Just you got Blaine. I'm telling you, if you get Blaine going on these wise, existential Kierkegaard, when he's on that level, I'm just sitting here taking notes. I got my paper out. So thank you both. Allana, please join us again. Incredible. Check out the podcast. Check out the book, allanapratt.com. Thank you so much for opening our hearts.
Oh, thank you. Group hug. Love you both.
Group hug.
Send love to your wives.
Love you.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. As you know, I'm in Myrtle Beach.
Air.
It's amazing, right? 2 for 2. And we got a couple minutes here for my last guest, the great Greg Upah, another great guest as far as an author. But, Greg, I'm going to start off, give you a couple seconds to give us a little background. But when I'm reading your background, I think of the best piece of advice. Obviously, I've been in sales a long time, from Dennis Waitley to Mike Bosworth to, the old greats, the Zig Ziglars of the world, trained in solution selling with the corporate money poured behind me. But as I got older, I had a mentor, and he said, David, what they taught you to be is a great opener, but you need to be a closer. And it seems to me, with the secrets of success that you have, it's not only an opening, but an opening that allows you to close, to articulate the quantitative value, to exceed what we're asking for. Greg, give us a quick background, but I know you have a question for Blaine and I as well.
Sure. Thank you. Hello, David. Hello, Blaine. Good afternoon. Thank you. My background, I started off in the advertising business in New York, and one of my clients was Merrill Lynch, and they offered me a job to go into institutional sales and marketing to high net worth individuals and institutions. And I was there for 15 years doing that job. And you can't survive a place like Merrill Lynch unless you close, David. To your point, that's your only job security is actually bringing business into the firm. But once you have that security, it can be a great job. So I learned a lot about selling and the fear of not succeeding, and I tried to put that into the book that called Sales Talks, and that's what I've been doing for the last few years since I left Merrill.
Awesome. And what question do you have for us, real quick?
Here's my question. And this is about business relationships now. Today, many companies, are at a crossroads about how they interact with their customers. There has been a lot of discussion in the last several months during the pandemic about too much screen time and not enough face-to-face contact. The Wall Street firm that I worked for prohibited in-person contact during that whole time. And recently, they banned cold calling. So the issue to me is, how important is breaking bread with your customers? I think there's no good substitute for breaking bread with your customers, in my view. And so regardless of which direction companies decide to take now, they want to continue to build on the electronic media or go back to face-to-face, they need to spend time in continuing education, helping their salespeople and other people do a better job in customer contact and helping them avoid the mistakes that many salespeople continue to make. That's my point. What do you think?
I'll jump on this real quick, and then Blaine, if you can add. I personally have changed my perspective of this, and the reason is it's generational. And as we can't call people, I had an interview, and the vice president of YouTube is a queer, and she said the word queer, and I freaked out. I was like, you can't say that word. It's like, no, that's the word. I think what's happening is in person, on the phone, via email or media, traditional or social media, all four are terrific ways to close and open deals. And some people prefer one over the other. And it's our job, just like it is to ask someone, how would you like me to speak to you or address you or title, whatever. I think today's salesperson, it's their job to ask, how best can we do business together? In person, on the phone, via email, social media? How best do you feel comfortable? Because I'm capable of communicating in all realms, in all mediums. And although I'm like you, Greg, because we grew up with the same training, I love to break bread. I love a hug. I love to be on a golf course or break bread. But I also know that I'm probably one of the best closers via text and email, which I can reach so many more people, let alone the stimuli of interest. I probably am superior on the social media aspect than most middle-aged people like myself. So in person, on the phone, via email and social media, ask those clients how best they like to communicate and have that relationship, I think statistically you'll be far more successful. Blaine?
Relationship. That's all an organization is. It's a relationship. And communication's the lifeblood of a relationship. I'm not going to close any deal. I'm not going to open any deal without communication. Historically, we would look at communication in terms of how we actually interacted with each other, through the lens of three modalities. It was either going to be speech, touch, or feel. How are you learning? Do you learn through listening? Do you learn through doing? Do you learn through? So those modalities, the visual modalities, and it's really about how do people learn about each other today. And I really agree with you on this, David. I don't think, Greg, it's really either or. I think it's really a question of blending, understanding that the nature of the world has changed, but it's still fundamentally the same. It's based on relationship. And then how do I communicate effectively in those relationships? And Virginia Satir, once said that communication is the art of working out common meaning. And if I'm working out common meaning via a Zoom call, if I'm working out common meaning while I'm sitting down breaking bread, if I'm working out common meaning, I'm probably going to get to where both of us would like to go. It's going to be easier in some cases because I've got more visual cues, I've got more auditory cues, I've got more sensory cues when I'm sitting down with you face to face, but that doesn't say that I can't do that in this modality either. And then we start adding on to some of this virtual reality where we can actually almost simulate sitting down in a restaurant sort of an environment. The net of it for me comes down to it's beholden on me to communicate effectively and to discover how to do that best. That's fundamentally what it comes down to. That's fundamentally how I was taught. Everything is based on communication. Pay attention to quality of the relationship.
Greg, it's sales talks. No, it just depends on where they want to be talking to you and with you and for you and through you. I apologize, but we have to cut this show off. I am here in Myrtle Beach. I will have you back, Greg, because I want to get more into the book sales talk. Yeah. I'd love to hear some deeper perspective on how that transition with someone with your experience is occurring within such a big realm at Merrill Lynch and in other places. There's a lot of people that would like to learn more. For now, though, people can reach Greg. Where's the best place to reach you, Greg?
GregUpah@gmail.com, or my website is gregupah.com.
You got it. Thank you so much. We'll have you back on. Appreciate the question.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All righty.
You got to run.
10-second takeaway. Give it to me.
I'll just loop back on the relationship. I mean, relationship with a UV machine, relationship with a human being, relationship with communication. It fundamentally comes down to that.
I love the heart set, mindset, and the pragmatic nature of all of our guests, and articulating the quantitative value to exceed what you're asking for is the secret of sales success for all of them. So thank you so much, Blaine. Learn.blainebartlett.com. I got to jump. I love you all, Blaine especially. We are on it. It's office hours. Join me tomorrow. Training's at 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. It's on every platform from Clubhouse to Instagram to LinkedIn to the webinar with over 50,000 registrants. Join me. It's BYOQ. Bring your own questions. I'll bring the answer. Remember, most importantly, be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.